North Node.
And so many of our guests will say that they feel closer to the guests on the retreat than they do like their friends that they've known since childhood. And it's because of the way it's facilitated. Again, they're in a space that is intentionally made to feel safe, where you can be vulnerable but supported. And it's just that doesn't really happen very often in the real world. Usually we're having to not only keep up with everything that's going on in our lives and always thinking of, next thing, next thing, next thing, but also there's a persona that we've created that also has to be maintained, that can just mask can come off. You can just be who you are. And the beautiful thing is just how non-homogenous the retreats can be, because it applies to anybody with a nervous system. Doesn't matter
Oh, yeah.
if you're like your gender, it doesn't matter religion, doesn't matter any preferences, political oriented, none of it matters. It's just that if you have a nervous system, it's the only thing that matters.
Live Zestfully by Elan Vitae is a transformative conversation space where the core contributors of Elan Vitae magazine step up to the mic and invite you to wake up, step into your full aliveness, and design your life story with intention and audacity. Each episode, we go beneath the surface, exploring the soulful, the untold, and the real-life edges of what it means to live multidimensionally. From intuitive insights, emotional alchemy, and creative expression to the powerful journeys of reinvention, we're here to acknowledge how far you've come and inspire you to open to what's next. If you're ready to feel more alive, create more impact, and embody your unique truth, this podcast is your invitation. So tune in, lean in, and step into the fully expressed life that's calling you. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Our guest today is Lucy Oliver. Lucy is the founder of Precision Health, hosts of 5, 10, and 21-day retreats dedicated to nervous system regulation. Now, you may have heard some buzz around that lately, and with good reason. The nervous system is the connection between the brain and the body, and when it's dysregulated, we experience everything from sleep issues, digestive problems, and hormonal imbalances to muscle tension and anxiety. And with the state of the world today, we are walking around more dysregulated than ever. I'm so excited to bring this conversation forward because I was fortunate enough to experience the benefits of what Lucy's created firsthand at one of her retreats. Their approach at Precision Health is unique. It's succinct and it's incredibly powerful. Lucy handpicked the highest caliber practitioners to lead their on-site experiences. Their intentional, methodical stacking of modalities, along with a totally supportive environment, think things like really close to nature, beautifully prepared and super tasty anti-inflammatory meals, and gorgeous accommodations, leads to a true reset on all levels. In our conversation, Lucy takes us through her own childhood health struggles, the overcoming of which lead to the approach which has now served more than 1,000 participants at her retreats. She shares her path through entrepreneurship and leadership, both of which evolve while bringing her vision to fruition, and how she intends to grow the number of people who can benefit from their retreats. With locations in the tropics of Mexico and on a working farm in Portugal, Lucy is on a mission to empower as many as possible by stabilizing their nervous systems. If you've been daydreaming about hitting the reset button yourself, stay tuned. You won't want to miss this conversation. I hope you enjoy this time with Lucy Oliver. Hi, Lucy. I'm so excited to get to talk with you today about Precision Health and everything leading up to this magnificent thing that you've created. So welcome to Live Zestfully.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very much looking forward to the conversation as well.
Excellent. Well, I so want to get to the place where we talk about the magnificent things that you offer. But before we do that, I'd love to talk more about your background and how this came to fruition, your evolution over the years that led you to create this magnificent thing that you've created.
Yeah, it was quite the ride. It's a bit of a story. It wasn't really intentionally planned out with the strategic operational plan, but it's been a really great learning curve and a big personal growth journey for sure. But really, it started because I was dealing with a lot of health issues, physical and mental health issues as I was growing up. I started with really bad digestive issues when I was around 10, 12 years old. I got hospitalized. They couldn't figure out what was happening. I got the, umbrella diagnosis of IBS, and this is just how things will be forever, and that's just it now. And then it just kind of continued. It just kept sort of spiraling. More things would keep coming up, and on the whole, I was like this active, seemingly should be healthy kid, but there was a lot of things that were just going wrong, and it spiraled into like hormonal issues. I ended up getting passed around specialist, all around the UK where I'm from originally, and just it definitely then aggravated mental health issues. Just being constantly told, oh, there's something wrong with you. You're not normal. You'll never be normal. You have to always be on these pills, or like you're just. I definitely internalized there was something fundamentally wrong with me. And then just things continued to spiral. And I think I got to a point in my early 20s where almost everything was broken. I had blood sugar issues, insulin issues, hypothyroidism, a massive eating, like raging eating disorder, I insomniac, huge digestive issues. I looked like 9 months pregnant, even if I ate a tiny meal. And I just got to this point where it was I couldn't even drive. I couldn't focus long enough to drive because I was scared. I was scared something would happen because my brain wasn't functioning, and I'd been pretty good at school and all of the rest, and just everything was falling apart. So I started researching myself because I kept getting, the answer I got from all of the doctors and practitioners I went to was that this shoulder shrug, we don't really know. It's like a mystery. And I guess this is you now. And so just kind of learned to live with it. And so fortunately, my background is in chemistry. I did a master's in chemistry for no real reason. I enjoyed chemistry and didn't know what to do with my life, like most 18-year-olds. And fortunately, science at least was a good basis to then go and do a lot of research. So I was grooming through all of these articles, research papers, like trying to figure out all of the systems of the body because it felt like all of mine were broken. And I knew there was something much deeper going on. And
Yeah.
so I started with digestion because that had been, such a big deal. And I was trying to eat 3 times a day and I was in horrible pain. And then the hormonal system, I was trying to figure out what was going on with my brain. And at the end of all of this research, which was over a pretty decent amount of a few years of experimenting and reading endlessly, I came to the conclusion I had a massively dysregulated nervous system. And that had probably started from, being very young and had led to this cluster of symptoms that I then started to see all over the place. People dealing with sleep issues, digestive issues, hormonal imbalance, brain fog, like this sort of reactivity and postural issues. And so I just started to see it everywhere. And that was, it just made me want to share the information that I'd found to understand it, because understanding it was just such the first step. You can do all of these tips and tricks and, get your routine down. But I think understanding the fundamentals of it then enables you to change behavior, which then changes habits and just actually leads to a longer lasting impact. So I really wanted to share that information and then the things that had helped me, because it was a lot of time and energy and money, and also understandably not many people want to read all of this quite dull. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of this information now has become more mainstream, but this was like going back a good 15 plus years when we were just figuring out like the gut biome, and it's really amazing to see how we're progressing. But so that was the big reason for starting the company. I am not a natural like entrepreneur business person. This wasn't really my dream.
But you make a really good point. There is a lot more information about all of these pieces and parts available now, but it's not easy to put them all together.
No,
and when all of your systems are sort of working against each other, you can't really pinpoint the one starting place, the one. And nervous system regulation, as you share and teach, it is multisystemic. It affects so many different things, and literally people can think they're going crazy and to they can follow this pathway and this guru and this piece of logic and this piece of science, and they make a teeny bit of headway, but they don't get to that place of actually being ahead of it, actually understanding and knowing what's going on. So for you, you mentioned sort of in your early 20s there was when everything felt completely broken. And it was a few years before you started putting things together. How old were you when you started getting to the point of gaining enough traction that you felt like, I'm now in charge of my vitality and my health and my living
Yeah.
experience?
I remember it was 2017 because my phone started picking me up as two different people. 'Cause I had sufficient of a transformation without, no insane diets or no. Because
Oh,
also I had a huge eating disorder, but I also had this massive amount of inflammation and weight gain, and just felt so uncomfortable with myself. And my phone picked me up, but without doing all of these fads and all of these things, nothing. It was just understanding what was going on with the nervous system and working to resolve that
yeah,
over a span. I mean, it was obviously a slow process of figuring it out, but it
yeah,
definitely sped up once I had kind of like, okay, I see what's going on here. And I started making those decisions that led to ultimately kind of being in a much more regulated place and just understanding what I needed to do
yeah,
to nourish more, like my
right.
brain, body, everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, my phone started with two different people. I was like, wow, what are you doing?
That
What's
is
this thing?
fascinating.
So it's 2017, how old would I be? Gosh, yeah, just late 20s, like
Yeah.
28, 29.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, how much of it do you feel like was going back now that you have come to this place of really not only understanding yourself, but understanding the systems and the protocols and putting things together in a way that help thousands of people now?
Yeah.
How much would you say was environmental? How much was
Mm.
personal, body, social? What were some of the factors that you found that were contributing to this complete dysregulation in the beginning for you?
Yeah, I think it was all levels, right? That what we look at for the nervous system is physical, mental, emotional, nutritional, and more existential themes. And I have no idea why I suddenly had a dysregulated nervous system. It could have been anything. I know my mom had really high stress hormones when she was pregnant with me, and maybe I was more sensitive in
Yeah.
general. There are definitely people who um, they just even things that wouldn't generally dysregulate some, they find that it's much harder for them to tolerate. So I don't have an exact pinpoint. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
What's important is,
Right.
how do I ensure that I can have that vitality and live how I want to live? And so, I mean, for me, I definitely did the inventory at that time, like in my 20s, of, well, what are these things? And
Yeah.
it's everything. And the thing is, you can't create some perfect environment. It's not about removing all of the stresses,
No.
all of these things that might cause some level of dysregulation that will only cause more stress. I'm sure, like
Right.
trying to
Yeah.
control everything
Yeah.
about your environment. If anything, it's probably letting go of control that's more important.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of things. And really, for me, it was just that much deeper understanding of what each thing I did. And I feel like we kind of demonize things like this is good, this is bad, but more it's like
Right.
understanding for me personally as that sort of n equals one experiment, what I needed to do to be able to get into deeper relaxation states, into that parasympathetic recovery
Yeah.
state, what was sort of keeping me in a more
Yeah.
dysregulated state. For me, it was like healing the guts, working on brainwave training. That's something we do in our programs because it
Yeah.
just helps me get into those low states that I was struggling to do. And I was very much in that wired high initially, which obviously we have these things for a reason. And I'm sure it
Yeah.
really helped me in many points of my life. And it's never ever about getting rid of something or, it's never that black and white. It's
Yeah.
always how to have the flexibility to be able to relax and restore when you need to, and then be on it and
Yeah.
alert when
And
you need to.
I think one of the things that's the hardest for people to understand is that no matter how much you understand about these things or these processes or these awarenesses about yourself, is that what you need to do is always a little bit different depending on
Right.
what's going on. Like there's never
Exactly.
one formula, even for one person. What works
Yeah.
now may not work 6 months from now or 3 years from
Yeah.
now. And I think people get so attached to, oh, I've got that one formula. It worked for me my whole 30s. Why is it not working for me in
Yeah.
my 40s? Well, your body is different. Your mind is different. Your circumstances, your
Yeah.
environment, everything is different. And so I think giving people that almost permission to understand
Yeah.
whatever the answer is for you is going to be fluid. And it's really about continuing to check in and understand the tools that
Yeah.
are available and how you put them together and how often you use them and for how long and things like that is really magical. And I'm going to
Yeah.
say this, I think one of the things that is really amazing about what you've done is that somehow you've compiled this group of experiences in a sequential way that work for the majority of people.
Right.
I mean, really hit so many things for so many people. So tell me about that moment when you realized, okay, this is not just about me, and I'm feeling called to do something. Maybe it was a calling, maybe it was just an opportunity, but tell me about that period of time where you decided this is way bigger than me, and what am I going to do about that?
Yeah. Well, for me, it was once you sort of open awareness to something, it's hard to unknow it or unsee it. I kind of on the other side now, and I would just start seeing people suffering in similar ways to what I was going through, and it was just so frustrating not having help. Obviously, you can't give everybody the answers. Like, we're never trying to fix anybody. That's not the goal. But being able to empower them with that information and tools, and just seeing the number of people with this similar cluster of symptoms, and knowing that they're probably getting similar answers to what I was getting, as in no answers. Like going through these specialists, and it's
Yeah.
just so frustrating. It just felt like I have to share it, and I happened to be. I mean, I had a bit of a unusual career trajectory. I guess I graduated and I worked in London in a regular job at a trading firm. And then when everything was falling apart for me, I just knew I had to change everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sort of trying to run away from the circumstances, and I ended up I was living in Canada for a while, and then through a variety of reasons, I ended up in Mexico temporarily waiting on a work visa. And I was actually working with a partner at the time on building a retreat center in Mexico. It came about through a series of coincidences. And it was something I felt like, oh, wow, this could be really amazing. I loved all the themes of health, and then also the
Yeah.
hospitality piece. But what I realized was how it really crystallized for me that I had like a set thing that I really wanted to share. And the partner I was working with had different ideas, was definitely more focused on the financial element. And I just knew that I needed to be able to have a full autonomy to be able to execute it as I wanted to. And I know a lot of the decisions that I made, they would look just like terrible business decisions on paper. Like if you're actually trying to convince investors or somebody to trust in what you're doing, they probably wouldn't have. And they could see the other side. And just being able to make the decisions based on what I knew needed to happen for people to get the results that I would like
Hmm.
them to get. And, a big thing when I started was I really wanted people to have a transformational experience, no matter how much time they were there for. And they would walk away being like, wow, that fundamentally shifted something. And there's a
Yeah.
spectrum. Some people it's just like completely life changing. And I'm still in touch with people from the very first retreats. I mean, we had one who said it saved his life right at the beginning. I was like, oh my
Wow.
God, they
Yeah.
keep going.
No pressure.
And then, yeah. And then, even if it's just like, wow, that just shifted my perspective to a point that I can find more joy, some more freedom in my day. I can
Yeah.
just thrive that bit more.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, after you've seen that, and it's hard to then work on something else. At least it was for me. It just felt like it was something I had to do,
Yeah.
and didn't really have a blueprint. We just kept going, and on the business side, just made it up as we went along. It was like, this is what we actually want to deliver, and then just figuring out the rest of it behind the
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've done it.
Well, you've put together really an incredible. So we've talked about the birth of Precision Health, and how did you decide that you were going to go with a retreat model? And tell me about putting together the team that you've put together, because the caliber is
Sure.
incredible. And I say this because I have been a participant in this retreat. And just for people listening, my experience in talking with Lucy is personal. It's a personal one. And it was a very important and transformational experience for me. And I am someone who works in the transformation space. I am a transformational coach. I have a gazillion tools in my toolbox and have studied every possible tradition you can imagine when it comes to transformation. And because I was in a space where I actually needed the nervous system reset and I knew it. I had been through a couple of very tragic, traumatic experiences back to back, and knew I had enough people around me and colleagues and just personal tools that I could make my way through. But I knew that if I let myself be vulnerable in a space where I could receive in a short amount of time, that I could catapult that trajectory for myself and shrink that timeline exponentially. And that's exactly what happened for me. And it's because of exactly how you've set this up, Lucy, and the people that you have involved. So I'd love to hear more about how you brought these people together and what your criteria was and why Reprecision Health works from your perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. Well, since I was accidentally almost involved in a retreat center in Mexico at the beginning, but before Reprecision Health existed, I saw the impact of the group model. Funnily enough, I'd never been on a retreat, so I never really like witnessed the power of it. But as I saw, because this was just it was a yoga retreat, which obviously can be incredible. I'm not a I like to think yoga is great. That's not my main focus. But just seeing the power in that space of time, the connection, the opportunity to create a container, I guess you call it, where for the nervous system regulation, probably the most important thing is being able to feel safe. And you really get out of that survival mode, the sympathetic activated state. And so being able to facilitate that it really helps having the group, which we'll get to in a second. Obviously, the space is so important, and everything was created intentionally in how can we, for people walking in, if they can just do that nice big exhale, they're not having to think about what they do any minute of the day. Really, like it's done for them, not thinking about what they have to eat. They're not thinking about the to-do list, not thinking about how do I have to make the most of my time here. And the group dynamic, which I think a lot of people are resistant to. And I must admit, I myself probably would be. I'm very much an introvert. I don't particularly enjoy, I hate small
Same.
talk.
Yeah.
And, but it goes so deep. That's the really beautiful thing because they're given an opportunity. And so many of our guests will say that they feel closer to the guests on the retreat than they do like their friends that they've known since childhood. And it's because of the way it's facilitated. Again, they're in a space that is intentionally made to feel safe, where you can be vulnerable but supported. And it's just that doesn't really happen very often in the real world. Usually we're having to not only keep up with everything that's going on in our lives and always thinking of, next thing, but also there's a persona that we've created that also has to be maintained, that can just mask and come off. You can just be who you are. And the beautiful thing is just how non-homogenous the retreats can be because it applies to anybody with a nervous system. Doesn't matter if you're like your gender, it doesn't matter religion, doesn't matter any preferences, political oriented, none of it matters. It's just that if you have a nervous system, it's the only thing that matters. And so I feel like it puts everyone on a somewhat even playing field too, which is just like a weird thing that doesn't tend to happen in society in general. Whereas like I'm just a human here having this human experience and trying to figure out the challenges of
and for some reason, everybody else is here for the same reason, looking for the same things, even though there's a spectrum of how challenged or stressed or what level people are at when they get there. Everybody's there for the same reason. They want to feel better, and everybody's open to the experience. And so, yes, even for us introverts who don't like that group environment, there's something very special about the space, the place, and then obviously how it's facilitated. So
the facilitators for sure. I didn't mention them, but yes, they're incredible.
Let's talk about that a little bit, about the facilitators and how you chose, who you chose and why, and what their specialties are and how that all comes together.
Yeah, the facilitators and the team, they do such a good job of creating that co-regulation piece. So obviously with the other members of the group, that's there too. And we really do tailor the program in a way or design it in a way so that guests are having that opportunity to really support each other and create that co-regulation, which is just very grounding for the nervous system and probably something you never expect. And I don't think it's like the selling point. Nobody will come because of that. I feel like most people are like, oh, cool. There's like electrodes and data.
Right.
One of the biggest takeaways are generally like, wow, I had really deep connection to other humans. But the team, so our location is in the jungle in Mexico. As you saw, it's not like the easiest location to get to. I mean, it's fine for a retreat, but you don't tend to have this like amazing pool of incredible wellness practitioners like right on your doorstep. Fortunately, in the surrounding towns, there are some amazing practitioners. So some we found locally, and it's kind of one of those situations where meant to be situation. Like Dr. Aaron, one of our lead practitioners, he's really incredible, has an amazing background of this like perfect blend of behavioral psychology and also chiropractic, which is essentially the study of the nervous system. But he's really able to put the kind of emotional piece into like that, the physical and the mental, combine all of these things. I actually found Dr. Aaron at the circus school. It's from Pancho, which is the local town. So it's probably not where
Fantastic.
you would expect to find one of these practitioners. Others have come from, we put out ads, very specific ads, but what's cool, like Samantha, who's our amazing functional
Yeah.
health coach, has a wealth of knowledge. I did put out an ad, and she said when she was reading out the ad to her mom, and her mom asked, did you write this? I was like,
Oh,
this is you.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
you just sort of
amazing.
spoke to them, and she couldn't be a better fit if we tried.
Oh, well,
So
we
she
can't
specifically moved.
well, we can't talk about Samantha without talking about the food.
Right.
And the food nutritional component of this,
Yeah.
because that's one thing I'm still waiting for the cookbook to come out. So,
It's in process
looking
slowly in
good.
the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, the food. Well, this is the thing. So our chefs, they had no experience with anti-inflammatory nutrition or how to
Yeah.
cook in the way that we cook. So it was very much a training. I actually created the menu and the recipes. I love to cook, but I think the key was really transmuting the passion,
Yeah.
passing on the passion of why we do this. And the chefs we have are amazing. I mean, one
Yeah.
was literally rehabilitated from he's a former meth addict. And this gave him like
Wow.
new life, and he absolutely
Yeah.
loves it. He's worked his way up to head chef, and he's
Yeah.
just now very passionate. And for him, he just gets so much joy from being able to see the results of the food. If you're in a restaurant, it's like, cool, that was a nice meal.
Yeah.
But in these retreats, it's like 5 days, you can see it, but even more so on the longer ones when you spent, time day after day with the people, and you can see how much they appreciate the food, they enjoy it,
Yeah.
but then it's really medicine. It's not
It is.
just for the enjoyment.
We
And
still
so
to this
they
day
they love
talk
that.
about how can we eat more like we ate at the retreat? And how
Yeah.
can we, set ourselves up on a weekly basis so that we have all these things available to us. So it's never going to be like, okay, fully prepared meals 3 times a day,
Right.
in the perfect,
Yeah.
that's hard to
No,
pull
I
off
don't
at
do that
home.
either.
No, but every week we talk about it. We talk about how can we bring
Yeah.
one more element into our daily, weekly experience to continue the changes over time. And I think
Yeah.
that's another thing that you guys do really well is that a lot of times anything you go to, there's this big high, you go to a retreat, you have an amazing experience, and then you're done. And then how do you
Yeah.
implement that in your own life when you get home? And
Yeah.
you guys have done a really interesting integration piece that is part of the experience where you continue to host educational platforms, group meeting things. So talk about why that's important to you and how you've done it in order to maintain the results for people.
Yeah, it was really important to try and help our guests to integrate everything they learned. So obviously, it's nice just to go and have a fun 5 days or like a nice 10 days. And most people are happy with that and also are able to integrate pieces without us helping.
Yeah.
It is quite difficult for us to also have some control over what they do in their lives when they get back. So all we can do is inspire.
Right.
And so we do provide a lot of resources. We have a full resource page for reminding them of the workshops that they've done, even suggestions on doing like accountability groups within the group. And then, we host monthly calls with our practitioner team as they're like a huge range of themes. The last one was about people pleasing, and we did that with Anna, our therapist. Like, how can we work on breaking some of these traits of people pleasing that aren't helpful anymore? And they cover all sorts, ADHD to postural things with Dr. Aaron to blood sugar balance.
Yeah.
And so, we just give them themes that our guests want to hear about. And a big thing was working on building community, which obviously, when we're in a community, it's much easier to be inspired. I think something that can be challenging when leaving a retreat and having expanded perspective and consciousness of certain things is to go back into the environment that actually created the situation that prompted the guest to come in on the retreat. So it can sometimes cause a little bit of, I call it the crash and burn effect, where the first few weeks can be really tough, where there's more triggers, there's more things. But over time, just remembering what we learned on the retreat, remembering these things that really stood out to each guest of what they wanted to implement. And over time, we see really big shifts. And we've been doing this for enough years now to know that they do stick. Of course, tough times might make it more challenging. And then always, keep coming back to these principles that they learned. So the best thing we can do is help to motivate. And something we're launching very soon is our app, not because we want an app, but because our guests requested that they're able to meet other people close to where they live. So especially in the major cities. And so other guests who've been through the program, they get it. because some they realize actually certain friends maybe aren't, for example, they don't want to really be drinking as much, but all of the social
Yeah.
activities revolve around going to bars and going out to party, or they want to find friends who are into doing more retreat-based activities and things that they've learned, or even just having deeper conversations. So that's
Yeah.
coming very soon.
That's
Very,
amazing.
very
I
soon.
think that's one of the things that I think keeps people from diving into programs like this because it does change who they are fundamentally. It
Right.
changes what they're available for and what they're willing to allow into their lives. And that
Right.
often means it changes their social circle. And that's uncomfortable.
You can feel
If
lonely.
it
Yeah.
changes their family dynamics, yes, there's a very
Yeah.
lonely feeling that goes along with that. And I think the opportunity to connect with other people who have not only had that experience, obviously it's their own experience within the context of
Yeah.
that retreat or set of modalities, but to have that just understanding, the baseline understanding of I'm trying to be a better human, you're trying to be
Yeah.
a better human. Our path is different, but we can support one another and we have more in common, and there's that understanding is a beautiful thing. So that's going to be an amazing
Absolutely.
offering.
Well, it's
Well,
such an important piece of the human experience too, being able to feel understood, seen,
yeah,
understood. Yeah,
yes.
for sure.
Well, this doesn't all come together without an amazing amount of foresight and vision, which we've talked about a little bit for you, but I think it takes something special to turn that vision into real leadership. And what I connect to in you is that I see this tremendous force of really bringing this into fruition that takes a very special set of skills. So I'd love to hear more about sort of how you have evolved as a leader just through the process of deciding this needs to be out in the world and how am I going to make this happen? Because there's not a lot of people that can pull off what you have pulled off and are continuing to grow and expand. We'll talk about that in a minute too. So tell me about how this has affected yourself as a leader and your leadership style and just your own evolution through creating this business now.
It was certainly a very steep learning curve. I would say a lot of trial and error, but it's been great. I think the hard part for me is it's such a human focused business in the sense of, we have a big team of staff. We also have all of our guests who I love, and I love meeting them, connecting with them. I just know I have that natural introvertedness. So I get exhausted whenever like I love it. But yeah, so that's been difficult for me to balance where if I'm on site trying to there's kind of two worlds to it. There's the front of house, everything that you see when you're on a retreat, and then the back end of things that all has to be very structured, all compliant amongst different countries and
Oh,
all of these
right.
things. Yeah. And so it's sort of required two brains. I think something beautiful is that there's such a diverse amount of things that need to be done. My brain enjoys it in the sense
Yeah.
of, okay,
Yeah.
one day you're sort of figuring out legalities of this, that, and the other. The next day we're working on
Yeah.
improving the actual protocol. The next day we're working on menu.
Right.
Yeah, it shifts. But I think from a business perspective, business is business. And at the end of the day, this has to run as a business for it to exist. It can't be one
Yeah.
of those businesses that loses money just to exist.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that would be lovely. Maybe in the future we can just have a kind of nice nonprofit and we just run these programs, don't need to worry about finances. That would be wonderful. But no, we have bills that need to be paid. We try to treat our
Sure.
staff as the best we possibly can.
Yeah.
And keep the lights on and keep things turning and also keep growing so that our staff have more opportunities, they stay motivated. I think that the biggest piece was really transferring the enthusiasm. And even when you really don't feel like it, when and
Yeah.
everything's going wrong, because I do feel like there are many days where it's just kind of constant punches in the face.
Yeah.
I get have these jokes. I'm like, how many times can you be punched in the face before you decide to switch plans? So you have to be really, I don't know what the word is exactly. I mean, it's persistence, but also just a high tolerance level for pain, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, there's something interesting about you've managed to attract in every facet that I've seen of my experience at the retreat of you've really attracted all these practitioners who are at the top of their game. These are people who are
awesome.
highly, highly qualified. And how do you approach leading people who are already extraordinary at what they do and bringing that together to make a really cohesive experience?
Yeah, I think for me, it was really allowing them to shine. It's not rather than controlling it. So giving them a platform. Most of these practitioners, they don't want to think about business because of those reasons. It feels like you're getting punched in the face multiple times a day. And it takes you out. It takes you out of the zone that you want to be in, and to be able to be present, to hold space for people, to really do such a good job of connecting and doing the things they do. So giving them the opportunity where they can do the thing they really love, and you can tell they love it and it shines through. And also by working together, it really stacks. They're seeing shifts that, okay, they can make good progress in their private practices and clinics, but when they see it together in Re, and also people who are coming down, they're open to this experience.
Yeah.
For example, a chiropractor in practice, okay, someone might have a back pain. Somebody, okay, here, an adjustment. Coming down onto the retreat, I know we can go so much deeper, and it feels a lot more rewarding, not trying to put words in their mouth, but things that have come across talking to them. And so, I do my best to inspire them. They are just innately really wonderful people. So it doesn't take much to, get them, but it's the combination and the team effort of making it happen. So that's,
you can feel that from the practitioners, of almost like they are really feeling rewarded from the experience of sharing what they know and seeing the results. And so that in turn just makes the participant feel so much more open, because it's a genuine exchange. And I don't think anybody there from the practitioner side was posturing in any way. Like, they were very transparent about their own trials and tribulations, their own hurdles they've come through, whether it be health or emotional or mental or whatever it was. So there was a very real understanding and camaraderie, although they're exponentially ahead in their knowledge base and ability to share and how they put it into use in their daily lives, that they created quite the container that was just a place that you could tell the cohesiveness, and you could tell that everything about it was intentional, how it was lined up, how it was played out, the sequence and the order of things, right down to people checking you in or making sure, did you have any questions? Everything was very cohesive. And I think that's a tribute to you as a leader.
Systems are very key. Systems and ensuring that nothing depends on just one person, including me. So we can switch in and out. And it is the program itself, although every person in it is really amazing. That the protocol is going to work through, and you're going to come to the other end, but being able to systematize it, because also to create that sense of safety if you're getting picked up late, if this isn't going right, if there's, and obviously we're in the jungle, so if it's certain things that we can't control, but still, really setting the scene to be able to come in and unwind. That's the point. And
so right now, including where I went, was to Sayulita, Mexico. However, that's not the only place that these will be available really soon, right?
Yeah, very soon.
Okay, good. Talk to us about what's coming up next for Precision Health.
Yeah, well, I'm currently sitting in Portugal because we will be opening our new location in Portugal. It's just north of Lisbon. It's been a work in progress for a couple of years now, so it's very exciting. We're still in renovation phase right now, so we haven't officially announced dates, but they're coming very soon, before the end of the year. So that's been incredibly exciting, and to have a European base. And this one is a working farm. So we have 40 acres, an abundance of fruit trees. The amount of figs right now is insane. It's only big. And walking trails. We're going to have a veggie garden that will supply the kitchen. And a really nice, beautiful, peaceful location. So we're also adding in a completely non-toxic spa and all of the same modalities to be part of our program.
Yeah. Well, we left the first retreat saying, okay, next time we did a 5-day, we want to do a 10-day, maybe we'll do it in Portugal. We are already waiting for the announcement of when it's available because we'd like to book. And obviously, the reason I wanted to have this conversation with you is because this was an incredibly impactful experience for me, and everybody I know, no matter how healthy or evolved, has the opportunity to check in with themselves and to do so with this high caliber of a team at these incredibly gorgeous, well-maintained, well-run locations is something I think everybody should do. I hope everybody will gift this to themselves. So I'm really grateful that we got to have the time to sit down and talk more about how this came to be, what you're sharing with the world, because I think it's incredibly impactful and done in a really beautiful way. So I just wanted to share this with our listeners, our audience. And is there anything else you want people to know about Precision Health?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing. It's so great to hear always when guests have a big positive experience. That's the motivation that keeps us all going. So it's our fuel. So we love to hear it. And fortunately, we get a lot of good comments. There's nothing in particular. We also have a lot of resources on our website. We
Okay.
understand not everyone can take time off to come down and do a retreat. We try to make them as accessible as possible, and we continue to work on more
Yeah.
ways to do that. And there'll
Mhm.
definitely be more coming from Precision Health soon. But yeah, you can find a lot of resources on the website, and
Great.
hopefully you're able to visit either Mexico or Portugal, and
Absolutely.
we'll
And we'll make
welcome
sure
you.
we connect all of that information, all those details and links and everything in the show notes so people can find your website, find your
Perfect.
Instagram, all those things where they can get a little taste and teaser of what they had the chance to experience with you guys. But thank you again so much for taking the
Yeah.
time. This conversation with Lucy is a reminder that our vitality deserves our attention and care, that we are the accumulation of our habits, and while a reset can catapult us forward, our intention and devotion to developing ourselves, both constantly and consistently, is what writes our story of vitality. If small patterns have accumulated and taken you further from how you really want to feel, placing yourself in the thoughtful care of people like the team at Precision Health may be just the boost you need. Choose from their location in the luscious tropics of Mexico or their newly opened working farm in Portugal and book the getaway that takes you back to you. See details at reprecisionhealth.com. That's reprecisionhealth.com. Thanks everyone for being here and sharing this time with us. The journey is so much sweeter when we get to share it with each other. As always, full show notes are available at elanvitae.com/podcasts. There, you'll find a full summary of the episode, timestamps, key takeaways, and resources mentioned in our conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you'd leave us a rating and review. You can do that on Apple, Spotify, or any other platform that is your preferred for listening. Your reviews really do help other like-minded souls discover the show. And if you know someone specifically that might enjoy this episode, we're so happy to have you share it with your friends. Lastly, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback you'd like to share, please email livezestfully@northnode.co. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you to the team that makes this show possible. Podcast production and marketing by North Node Podcast Network.